Introduction. Being religious, holding or believing in something is considered a nature in life of all human beings in this world since birth. This religious dimension has been studied and researched about the origin of its existence, about its creation, the way of its adherence, and so on by most skilled experts since time immemorial. Second, this concept of religion also shows a framework of human civilization in adhering to a religion according to their ancestors. Third, this shows that without religion in this world, the whole of human life will be a mess because there is no holding and belief whatsoever about a thing. Therefore, a religion is the backbone of the strength and belief of the believer. For example, Islam is the one of the religion that shumul, a religion that is comprehensive and perfect, as well as bringing to 1,001 benefits to all her believers till the end of our life.
Islam is the religion of Allah, revealed to the apostles as the guidance and mercy of Allah for mankind at all times, which guarantees the well-being of material and spiritual life, the world and ukhrawi. According to Sheikh Muhammad Naqi al-Atas, Islam is the true religion in the sight of Allah and the religion of Muslims who are called Muslims. In fact, Islam is also a religion that teaches the concept of morality, not focus on aspects of belief only. Islam comes from the Arabic language, which is also derived from the word salima, which means safe and secure. This opinion is also agreed by almost all experts, especially Islamic scholars. From the word salima, which means safe and secure above, from muta'addi transitive into aslama, which means self-preservation, obedience and obedience. People who practice Islam or convert to Islam are called Muslim. The word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim, Bala man aslama wajhahu lillah wa huwa muhsinun falahu ajrahu 'inda rabbih wala khawfun 'alayhim wala hum yahzanun. But no, whoever submits themselves to Allah and does good will have their reward with their Lord, and there will be no fear for them, nor will they give grief. Islam pamphlets aim to achieve the following. First, to give an introduction to man about God and Creator through His beautiful names and His attributes which no one can match, His prophet and wise deeds, and about His rights which have no end for Him. Number 2, invite people to worship God without associating Him by carrying out all His commands and abandoning all His prohibitions. And lastly, give a warning about the state and place of their return after death, what will happen in the grave, about the day of resurrection, the arrangement of practice, as well as the determination of whether to heaven or hell. Islam was spread among the Malays beginning in the 17th or 13th century through marriage between other families in Hadramaut and the Persian Gulf and the Malay royal family, which led to the conversion to Islam. Islam, which was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, has been bringing great change to the Arabs who were once backward, stupid, unpopular, and ignored by other nations, have now become a delivered nation. Islam is indeed much more than a system of theology. It is a complex civilization. This word, according to H.A.R. Gibb in his book Whether Islam States.
about a background of Taliban and factors in the emergence of the Taliban movements. Taliban means a group of students. It is the result of a combination of the Arabic word. It is talib with the adjective an taken from the dialect system of the Pashtun community. The movement was called the Taliban because it is early stage. The movement was not only joined by anti-Mujahid groups, but the movement also received strong support from thousands of madrasah students located around Afghanistan and Pakistan. In 1994 was the emergence of the Taliban movements for the first time, and they have set up several madrasas in Afghanistan as a sign of its emergence. The Taliban is a Sunni Muslim movement. On 3 November 1994, the Taliban launched a surprise attack on Kandahar to conquer it, and at the same time, they were able to take control of 12 provinces of Afghanistan. After that, by 1995, the Taliban had been able to unite and control the southern part of Afghanistan. Such effectiveness and success make the Taliban further expand its control targets. This had opened the door for the Taliban to take control of Kabul, the most strategic province in Afghanistan. At the same time, the Taliban wants to implement Islamic law around Afghanistan. Therefore, the Taliban must conquer the two great powers in Afghanistan, namely President Rabbani and Hikmatyar. Then there was a battle between Hizb Islami, the Hikmatyar group, and the battle was won by the Taliban. However, the Taliban lost to occupy the Kabul district because the area was controlled by Mas'ud, a soldier chosen by President Rabbani. By the end of September 1996, Kabul was preparing to block an attack from the Taliban. However, the Taliban have besieged the area from two directions and caused the Taliban to gain control of Kabul provinces. At the time, one by one, Afghanistan could be controlled by the Taliban. After successfully taking control of Kabul, Mullah Muhammad Omar became the leader of Afghanistan under Taliban rule. Despite what we know now, the Taliban did a lot of extreme things in upholding Islam, yet a lot of struggles and sacrifices were made by the movement defending Islam in the beginning. Among them is that the Taliban was moved to join the jihad against Soviet troops trying to invade Afghanistan. The Taliban is also working to counter the issue of moral collapse and rampant crime in the Kandahar provinces as a result of the failure of the Mujahideen to form a government after the withdrawal of Soviet troops. In addition, the Taliban has also sought to uphold Islam, which has long been practiced by the Afghan people. When the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, they brought communism into the country, while the Afghan people at this time were mostly Muslims. So, there is the leadership of the ulama who depend the religion of Islam who adhere to the Hanafi school and are active with current political developments. Finally, the Taliban has banned relations against the enemy and declared a mass amnesty despite many threats against Afghanistan. For example, US President Joe Biden has praised the Taliban movements for helping to launch the US military withdrawal. Thus, the Taliban has assisted in the process of evacuating refugees consisting of the liberals and those affected by it to leave Afghanistan.
Example of violence by the Taliban. First, the Taliban supports and provides assistance to Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is the root of the global militant terrorist network that was founded by the Osama bin Laden and is also known as a jihadist group feared by the world as well as considered an international terrorist movement. The relationship between the Taliban and Al-Qaeda has given them credibility among the jihadist group. This is because Al-Qaeda has made its first bay'ah in 1990. Second, Taliban against women. Women were locked up in their home, much entertainment was banned, and they were whipped and stoned to death used by the Taliban, who enforce Sharia law rudely and brutally. Not only that, the Taliban also strictly forbade women seek education and work. The last example is Taliban against politics in Afghanistan. The Taliban are now fully responsible for the honor, property, human rights of the people in Afghanistan. Most people in Afghanistan are afraid and worried about the return of the Taliban extremists in control of some areas. This is because the Taliban will use their means in governing and managing the administration in the country. Therefore, the former president of Afghanistan has warned all his people to be careful and ready to take refuge under the government of Taliban. Impact on society, nation and the world. For the people of Afghanistan, it is considered a nightmare when recalling the rule of the Taliban in the late 1990s until the early 2000. The effect mean here is in terms of the way they govern and dominate, which is extreme in all aspects of their life, such as politics, the military, human rights and the others. Not only that, the Taliban extremist faction is considered by the whole world as a militant or military group, which is very difficult to compromise as well as deliberate on something. After the return of the Taliban to control most of the district in Afghanistan, it has reformed religious conservatism, violence, extremism and xenophobia in the Middle East. For the community in Afghanistan, the Taliban have shown that their personalities are not easy to democrate with other parties or with anyone.
Chapter 3. ISIS. Background of ISIS. The Islamic State, also known as the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria or the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, is a brutal Sunni Muslim terror organization that gained traction and came to prominence in 2012 to 2014 during and after Syrian civil war. ISIS claimed authority over all Muslims in the world and seek to establish a caliphate, bringing all of the Muslim inhabit region of the world under their control. They are extremist group who adhere to hardline jihadist ideology. Those who do not agree with their radical idea about the world, including fellow moderate Muslims, are subject to barbarism, torture, and murder at their hand and are labeled as infidel. History of the emergence of ISIS. The root of ISIS strikes back to 2004 when the organization known as Al-Qaeda in Iraq formed. Abu Musa al-Zarqawi, who was originally part of the Osama bin Laden's Al-Qaeda network, founded his militant group. The US invasion of Iraq began in 2003, and the aim of Al-Qaeda in Iraq was to remove Western occupation and replace it with a Sunni Islamic regime. When Zarqawi was killed during a US airstrike in 2006, Egyptian Abu Ayyub al-Masri became the new leader and renamed the group ISI, which stood for Islamic State of Iraq, in 2010. Masri died in a US-Iraqi operation and Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi took power. When the civil war in Syria started, ISI fought against Syrian forces and gained ground throughout the region. In 2013, the group officially renamed themselves ISIS, which stands for Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, because they had expanded into Syria.
Example of violence perpetrated by ISIS. Among these examples of ISIS, violence is that they have the capacity and ability to limit the best use of mass media. That's why we can clearly see that ISIS has no plan to attack Israel, but continues to attack any Islamic state that opposes the doctrine it brings. ISIS has resorted to many techniques to, in addition, its ideology, with a select cognizance on growing a scientific strategy use of sexual violence. Finally, ISIS' specificity in its use of sexual violence is that it publicly shows its crimes. ISIS employs a scientific use of sexual violence that appears specifically focused toward ethnic and non-secular minorities, and that serves the reason of higher controlling them to unlimitedly damage them. Next, the bad effect in Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. The main effect that from these extremists is a lot of text media and information that was created by ISIS. The media influence is the most powerful influence that facilitates this understanding to be transmitted in the visual community. With the emergence of new media such as Facebook, Twitter, Blogspot and so on, extremists are taking the opportunity to spread their understanding and ideology quickly. The main effect is they're threatening the political and economic stability of the country. At this time, the extremist movement is transmitted so rapidly by using the power of the media as platform to spread extremism. Next, it can cause a person or society to be confused and divide from each other because there are many false agendas that are easily spread in the mass media. Next, they also can destroy the characteristic of the teaching of Islam in preaching. The sanctity and well-being of Islam is trying to damage the harsh face of the supposedly jihadist Islamist group, while the true Islam does not reflect the characteristic as they do. Although the group may be well-intentioned of defend Islam, the approach used is out of place and tarnish the image of Islam itself. All acts of terrorism are some of them as the result of the actions of Muslims, but this is not a lesson to accuse Islam of teaching its adherents to do so.
Now, comparison between Islam, Taliban and ISIS. We can know the comparison or the differences between these three through their belief, rules, punishment, ritual and practices and others. Taliban versus Islam. Taliban belief. Taliban and Al-Qaeda prioritize monotheism as the basis of Muslim belief as there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his last messenger. This concept clearly defines Islamic traditions at both the person and collective stage. As an example, when the Taliban dominated Afghanistan and their effort with Al-Qaeda became to build an Islamic caliphate, the concept of there is no God but Allah, not Hinduism, has a ritualistic connotation. Al-Qaeda and Taliban additionally draws the perspective that God's concept is synonymous with authority. Muslims who adopt this stance automatically reject the system of governance. Muslim belief. We as a Muslim must believe in the pillars of Iman and vice versa. Number 1. Believe in one God, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We as a Muslim must love Allah, fear Him and place our trust in Him. Number 2. Believe in God's messenger, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Number 3. Believe in angels. Number 4. Believe in Al-Quran based in the Surah Al-Hijr. We have sent down the message and we will guard it. Number 5. Believe in Qada and Qadar. And last, believe in the day of the judgment, such as Yawmul Qiyamah. Now, Taliban's rules and punishment. Taliban enforced their strict interpretation of Sharia based on the Quran according to Hanafi jurisprudence. Crimes which Islamic law provides no fixed punishment will deal with ad hoc. Religious are ruthlessly enforced by the religious police under the control of the Ministry for the Propagation of Virtue and Prevention of Vice. In practice, this means that infractions were often met with gruesome public punishments carried out by Islamic police and Sharia court system. The Taliban has indicated that the implementation of harsh punishment such as public execution, cutting of hands and lashings will return under the reinstated Ministry for the Propagation of Virtue and Prevention of Vice. The Taliban said in September 2021 that they will continue punishment in accordance with Sharia. However, punishment recently meted out according to the Taliban interpretation of Sharia law have been inconsistent due to discrepancies among member interpretations and infighting. A Taliban official recently said that while strict punishment will return, this punishment may not occur in public. Muslim rules and punishment. Muslim law is Sharia. Sharia can be understood as God's will for humankind. Fiqh is the body of law produced by scholars trying to understand that will. It also have two basic sources, which is from Quran and Sunnah of the Prophet. The Quran is the main source of the Sharia and lays out the main principle. Under the Sharia, punishment can be classified under three main categories: al-hudud, al-qisas, and al-ta'zir. Islamic law has many similar defenses to crime as in the common law nations, including the use of puberty as the age of accountability. The penal philosophies under the Islamic system are similar to the Western views in theory, but they are applied in very different ways. Many punishments under the Sharia are public and are carried out as a deterrent to others. Sharia judges have much more freedom in sentencing options than Western judges. Taliban culture and practices. Religious minorities and other Muslims who did not share their fundamentalist understanding of Islam were not tolerated. The Taliban also severely restricted the rights of women and girls. Pursuant to the Taliban interpretation of Islam, women were banned from many activities, including receiving an education and working, had their healthcare restricted, were forced to wear burqas and travel with male relatives when in public. They also forbidden women from working outside or study. Women's limited access to healthcare, banning music and TV, and men are enforced to wear bird and others. Islamic culture and practices. Islamic culture refers to cultural practices which are common to historically Islamic people. It also generally includes all of the practices which have developed around the religion of Islam. These acts of worship, often called the five pillars of Islam. First is Shahadah. We always said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah. As a Muslim, we always say that. Number two is prayer. Muslims perform the ritual prayers 5 times a day, just as Prophet Muhammad did. Number 3 is zakat. Zakat is the compulsory giving of a set proportion of one's wealth to charity. Number 4 is fasting, Saum. During the daylight hours of Ramadan, the 9th month of the Islamic calendar, all healthy adult Muslims are required to abstain from food and drink. During Ramadan also, they share the hunger and thirsty of the needy as a reminder of the religious duty to help those less fortunate. And the last pillar of Islam is Hajj. Every Muslim whose health and finances permit it must make at least one visit to the holy city of Mecca. Muslims believe that it is the house of Abraham, built for God and face in its direction Qiblat when they pray. Next, we will see about comparison between ISIS and Islam through their ideology and their rules. ISIS ideology. Modern ideologies fulfill 4 fundamental functions. They raise awareness, diagnose the situation, form an identity, and formulate a remedy. All of them can be applied to the ideology of ISIS. The ideology of ISIS can be described as Salafi jihad or jihadist Salafism, the combination of respect for the sacred texts in their most literal form and absolute commitment to jihad. Islamic ideology, also often called political Islam or Islamic fundamentalism, is a political ideology which posits that modern states and religions should be reconstituted in constitutional, economic, and judicial terms in accordance with what is convenient as a revival or a return to authentic Islamic practice in its totality. This ideology also is a belief that Islam should guide social and political as well as personal life. Islamic movement so broad and flexible, it reach out to everything to everyone in Islam and making it unsustainable. Now we go to their rules. ISIS rules. All residents living in Syria and Iraq captured by ISIS are considered their citizens. Residents living in the country are required to abide by established laws, including the wearing of burqas or black veils for women, keeping birds and guerrilla fighter clothing for men, restriction on telephone and television access, no Western fast food, water rationing, and other. Muslim rules and punishment. Muslim law is Sharia. Sharia can be understood as God's will for humankind. Fiqh is the body of law produced by scholars trying to understand that will. It also have two basic sources, which is from Quran and Sunnah of the Prophet. The Quran is the main source of the Sharia and lays out the main principle. Under the Sharia, punishment can be classified under three main categories: al-hudud, al-qisas, and al-ta'zir. Islamic law has many similar defenses to crime as in the common law nations, including the use of puberty as the age of accountability. The penal philosophies under the Islamic system are similar to the Western views in theory, but they are applied in very different ways. Many punishments under the Sharia are public and are carried out as a deterrent to others. Sharia judges have much more freedom in sentencing options than Western judges. Labeling groups or individuals as extremists is often make each other confused. Failure to understand the groups of religious extremism risks stigmatizing some religious groups as irrational and supporting of violence when this is not the case. This negative issue can lead to separation, status loss, and discrimination, hate, as well as wasted resources in mistargeted counterism initiative and squandered political capital. Our hope is that a more comprehensive understanding of religious extremism will facilitate better insight and nuanced dialogue.